Okay.
Not if they watch my channel. They're not terribly confused if things come.
They often start this way, yeah?
Yes.
It would be the same if it were me.
Oh, yeah, I know. I mean, everybody says, oh, you ought to use StreamYard because it's so easy. StreamYard's making some more things, but this is the one Patrick knows how to fix. So.
Okay.
And right now we got no viewers, but it takes about a minute to come in.
Sure.
So how's the weather by you?
It's snowing and it is blindingly gray. You know that
Yes.
light that just there's no way of shutting it out.
Mm-hmm.
I would have moved to another room in my house, except then we hear my Westminster chimes or the dogs.
Okay, we've got Skywalking with Moon is with us. Yay!
Hey, Dr. Gail.
Dr. Gail. Dr. Gail's in the house.
How you doing?
And if you don't mind, Dr. Gail, I know you're here and promptly and on time. Oh, and False Teeth Real Tarot. Hello!
Oh, that's a familiar name.
Yeah, and Tracy. Hi. Well, what we're going to talk about today is we're talking about a book I ran into when I was starting to work with Danny, and I were going to do a thing on. And we're still going to do a thing on how to dowse for yourself. But in researching dowsing and finding out about personal frequencies, I ran across this book. It's called Frequency and the Power of Personal Vibration, and it's by a woman named Penney Pierce, and she wrote this book in 2009. And I was just blown away by it because she's talking about what's happening to us now. And the reason Diane is here with me is I've seen Diana go through some of the steps that are part of what she was describing as the ascension, but she didn't call it that. And she defined it a little differently, but I really, if you read her book, and I've only read the first part, she's building it up to how to understand working with your personal frequencies. And really what she talks about is she's always been psychic. And in a way, that's made it easier for me to follow what she was talking about, because she's tried to take the sort of growth she sees other people needing to go through, or the steps they go through, as an outside observer, because when you're born sensitive and you don't lose it, you kind of come in a different place. So this really helped me understand a lot of what I was seeing with other people. And we got Prince Charming's moms here and Carol Lee. Thank you all for showing up. I hope you don't have COVID. I went this morning to digress, which I do frequently. I was at the lab getting tested this morning, so I'll know this afternoon if I'm finally negative, and I should be, because I've supposedly had it for 3 weeks. But anyway, I hope no one has it. I hope everyone can avoid it, because it really kind of makes... my mind already wanders, and the last thing I need is a disease that makes your mind wander, you know?
Like after surgery, you know, you get that little hole in your brain that takes forever to fill.
Mm-hmm. So, the first thing I kind of want to say is some messages about we're all on a path, and as long as you keep moving, it does not matter how slowly you go, but that you keep moving. And that was from Confucius. And I think that's true. So, you know, if you say, well, I'm to here, but I'm not to here. I invited Diana because she had a breakthrough. She ended up designing her own deck and sort of breaking out of the mold and doing some fun things for herself. And I'm going to talk about people that get to that point and they break through and they decide, I'm going to create something new. I'm going to take what I've learned and use it actively. But to kind of put us all on the same page, and Diana's already seen this because I sent her the notes on this, but the 9 steps that Penney Pierce identifies as the points we go through in our life is your spirit is merged with your body, emotions, and mind, and that means you're born. And then as you grow older, frequencies around your life increase. That's step 2. Step 3 is personal and collective unconscious mind empties. In other words, all of a sudden you have periods of your life where your mind and the greater collective mind becomes one. And you find out you're not totally separate. And a lot of times when we hit that point, we get to step 4. And step 4 is you retrench, refortify, resist, and resuppress. And that's what I see a lot of people do. They'll come and they go, oh, well, I knew this friend wanted me to call, and I called him, and it was just a coincidence that I called him at the same time. No, that's called a synchronicity, and it means you're tuning in to a greater consciousness, and you need to pay attention to that. But a lot of people get afraid of that, so they fall back, and they just don't want to deal with it anymore. But then you get to a point where old structures break down and just dissolve. And I think universally you can look at that and say that would be COVID. Step 5 would be COVID, because I think we were all moving, because I know from 2015 on, I kept reading people that were waking up, but they didn't want to acknowledge they were waking up. Well, COVID kicked us in the butt, and if you weren't aware that you were waking up, you're aware now. And then 6 is you stop, you let go of what your preconceptions, you relax, and you begin to trust your truest self, that thing you've been running from forever. And then step 7 is you reemerge onto the world like a phoenix. And that's when we start doing our creative things and producing things that, 20 years ago, I would have never said, I'm going to create a garden. People are going to throw rocks in it. I'm going to create grids that are going to make a difference in people's lives. That's for me personally, but I'm seeing it happen to other people. And I'm going to talk about Diana's part of that and another friend of mine who's had something like that. And then 8, this is the important one for us to focus on. Relationships, family, and group experiences are revolutionized. So people who thought they had to stay in the family, that they had to keep their mouth shut and all that stuff for so long are finding out they have a right to speak. And also you start to see other family members in a different light depending on the family you're in. And then 9 is enlightenment is grounded in every bit of matter, and that's when you're fully into ascension. When your enlightenment's just part of your life, it's like breathing and waking up every morning and getting on with life. So I'm going to let Diana talk about her deck a little bit. She also has some statements that she felt fit with this lesson, because what this lesson is really about is it's trying to get us ready to understand why we should track our own personal vibrations and our own personal frequencies so that we have a measure. Because people say, oh, raise your vibe. What the hell? How do I know? So we're going to talk about that. So, Diana.
Well, first, thank you for welcoming me into your garden, because
Okay.
I just love walking through the garden with you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very nice to be able to sit here at the same time with you. And the first quote, I would like to start right off with Rumi, because this morning I was searching for something to go along with this and came across one of my favorites, Rumi. And he says, although you appear in earthly form, your essence is pure consciousness. You are the fearless guardian of divine light. So come, return to the root of your soul. And that is exactly what we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
because it's where we begin. It is our own private first step quickening, the very smallest quickening we have, the one where we come out of the womb, not just the one our mother went through.
Right.
With it. So with all of these ascension things, there's a big sense of all of this going on right now, from the changing of diet to simply lack of desire with other foods. Like back at Thanksgiving, I had decided, okay, my son's right, I need to quit caffeine. And so I gave up coffee. And then I graduated down to my other favorite, Earl Grey. And then graduated down to green tea. And I made a pot of tea the other day, yesterday actually, and I poured a cup, and the next thing I knew, the whole pot was all over the floor.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, Spirit, you win.
Mm-hmm.
Now on, no more caffeine. And I haven't missed it. And in fact, I've had 1 or 2 cups of coffee along the way with my brother when he was here visiting. And it just tasted terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And it lifted me up, yep, and it dropped me just like a sugar high. I've been drinking that since what? I was 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I never noticed that before, but that's what's doing it. So, yep, that was one of the things that was easy to see, that where spirit is merging with the body and the emotion and the mind and pulling it all back together. So, and then the frequencies increasing in life, well, you start to see repetitions of patterns, numbers, running into old friends who used to resonate to you that you suddenly no longer associate with, and then you suddenly come back together. And one of those frequencies is, to me, as I think about it, is not that Nancy Jean and I were friends in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But Nancy Jean and I were both born in 1949, and she went to camp here in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Basically at the same time. She's at summer camp in Michigan. I'm in another camp 20 miles down the road. So we already had an introduction to each other's frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And to go along with my deck and my creation of this deck, I have a method of reading with my spirit guides spiritually, just for me. It's usually an every morning ritual with me. And it gets pretty elaborate. And being an artist and now being in COVID lockdown, I just thought, okay, I have some time. I want to create a deck that incorporates all of this.
Mm-hmm.
How can I do this? So it was the end of 2019, December of 2019, when I started thinking about, how am I going to do this? I'm going to need at least 100 cards. Well, that's not the problem. The problem is, how do I get anybody I give this to be able to understand this, to be able to use this? Can't do it without a game board, because with a game board, it will make it easy. But I don't want it to be a game. I don't want it to be stuck in the Milton Bradley section. It isn't that. And so I, for almost a whole year, was racking my brain with this. Finally, Spirit said to me, why don't you just give up on that big idea and go with oracle cards and start small. Start with the things that you do know, so that you can take it in a direction later when people understand what's going on. And at the same time I'm getting these downloads, Nancy Jean is getting her downloads about the garden. Now, thinking back to the childhood days where we didn't know each other, we had tapped into each other's frequencies somehow, some way back then. Now, I'm thinking about how to do the cards. You are getting these downloads about doing the garden. I finished my deck of cards at the same time she introduces the garden. It was the perfect solution, and it was that the demonstration of being on the same frequency, that vibration that is not just a harmony, but perfect pitch, perfect together. And she covered all of the bases that I was having a hard time trying to incorporate into a deck of cards, into one deck of cards, without a game board. So that was how we got started with all of that. Anyways, so and then number 3, well, I guess that's what we're talking about here. Another case in point, Danny had a very wonderful meditation on Sunday morning. I didn't do it till later in the day, but I had met him on that frequency. I had that meditation on the frequency. And about 3 or 4 minutes before he even mentioned the archangels that he spoke of in the meditation, I saw them. They were present and with me. So it is part of finding that vibration and being able to pull it close to you, because as you vibrate, it searches for that other vibration that is of the same frequency to either harmonize, not be so far apart, or to bring this up to it. Absolutely, absolutely. And I love your readings with Jeffrey. When you're doing those, I sit with my cards and I use those 5 cards the same way you read them, as if and the same way Jeffrey does, and that individualizes the message that is a general reading for the collective.
Right.
And it just meshes so perfectly. I'm sure I've mentioned it several times in the comment section. So I'm always pleased when that happens, and it happens, every day. Every time you put a video out there, I'm with you. So, and then that retrenching, well, now we are, it's not just it is the retrenching. But Andrea said something yesterday. It was the remembering, but not, it's remember, become a member again of finding that vibration, raising to your tribal vibrations. And so it's a recollect, a re-energized. It's the frequency of Chrome. Now that I'm older, for me, it's the wisdom of Chrome. Am I going to be Baba Yaga, or am I going to be Pachamama? Where am I going to put myself? Am I going to be this angry old hag of a person, or do I put myself in the place that I have walked most of my life? Being in a sacred manner is not necessarily what Baba Yaga was all about, because she wanted to push kids in the oven and eat their fingers in the old fairy tales. So it's that frequency also is a what did I call it? I had written some notes down on it. Let me look really fast. This is it's the sonata. A sonata is a concert that is written for one. But when you re-sonata, you're in an orchestration, you're in a symphony, you're playing the piano and the violins have joined you and you're resonating together. That resonation goes on together. So, and then the experience of the transfer of thought back and forth. And what else I've noticed, it is so harder and harder to deal with the 3D world. I stopped going to concerts a long time ago, not because the music was too loud, but because I couldn't stand the crowd. The crowds had too many different vibrations. And I mean, I like things loud. I'm a headbanger from way back. I ride a Harley Davidson. I make it loud. It's okay. It's all of these ups and downs of other people that didn't resonate with where I was. And then the introduction of big business into
also some of the mind altering things those people are on were very difficult. Because when I was young and all my friends were going out and getting drunk and stuff, and I had a family that had kind of an open bar and I could have had anything I wanted, I never drank. I didn't start drinking till I was in my 20s and had to be a real adult. And then I decided, no, I think I'll go back and do that. But being with people whose minds are altered chemically is very, very difficult, because, and it's something that I used to have a great fear of. I a big outdoor sort of Woodstock kind of thing that was here at Lake Dallas. I saw Janis Joplin and a bunch of other really great
It was
bands.
the year, wasn't it?
Right.
I'm sorry.
But
I
I went to the edge of the crowd. My date said, "Well, don't you want?" I said, "No, there's no way." I kept moving out to the edge of the crowd, and from then on, I realized I really did not. I agree with you about crowds. I'm more adverse to crowds, and it's not just COVID. I was getting adverse to crowds before COVID hit.
It's hard to go to the grocery store now.
I don't go to the grocery. I don't go to the grocery store, so I'm a step ahead.
To get out. But, it's not just because of COVID. It's for all of the other reasons that you're speaking of. There's just, they're all mind altered. One thing that I noticed, we all experience road rage. Most of it comes from the other driver. But what happens is we start to catch that rage.
You get that vibration.
Yeah, it's that vibration. So I got in my car one day and I said, Holy Spirit said, you're going about this all wrong. You should do something different. So I did. So I have a sigil that was given to me by Archangel Raphael probably 10 years ago. So I started blessing the road and blessing all the other drivers and saying an incantation. And it's, bless the other drivers, keep me in a steady stream of pure white light that transfers and flows between us and gives me the ability to hear the divine guidance and the divine grace, and then put me in that blue bubble that shrinks to surround me and protect me. Then put me in a teal green orb. So that I spread that light of divine guidance, of divine grace. And then I make my motion and throw it in all four directions. Throw it at the animals and the trees and the shrubs and the water. And they catch my vibration. Whether it's long lasting or not is not the problem. Not my problem, it's theirs if they don't watch that. But all of the traffic calms down around me, whether the expressway or the little 2-lane roads where people should not be going so fast because there's chicken and horses and and a bear. I had a bear in my backyard yesterday morning. I had a really good vibration session in the Moon Lodge. And when I finished, I came downstairs and I watched him lumber up. Now, he was in my backyard neighbor's yard, but my biggest fear was, oh my God, somebody's going to get a rifle and shoot him, But he kept hanging around, and because of the morning I had, I just felt like he's one of my totems, and this was one of the totems coming in. And the fact that he laid down, curled up in a ball, and took a nap, just like a great big huge dog, out, and was hidden in this hill, so nobody else saw him, just me.
Well, he knew where to go where it was safe.
He did, right? And there he was sleeping. I mean, I expected him to just keep lumbering on down to the woods at the end of the street, but he didn't. He had to have left sometime between 2:30 and 4 o'clock, because I was on a Zoom call all through that time, and that's when he disappeared, was after that. So,
well, one of the things you've talked about is Master Eckhart, who, if you've seen anything about my garden, he's all over it. He was a big guiding light for helping me create it. But one of the things I found from him, where'd you go? Diana, you went away. Well,
I'll robocall.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're on a phone, that's right. Master Eckhart said, when the higher flows into the lower, it transforms the nature of the lower and moves it towards the higher. So that's what you're talking about in that transference of power. And because of that, you've found something that's another quote that I really like, Alexander Pope, the way that creative works through change and transformation, so that Each of us thinks and receives the true nature and destiny and then it creates those into permanent accord with great harmony. And that is what furthers us and preserves us. And
Yes.
so, for those of you who have never seen Diana's deck, it's an oracle deck. It's a small deck. It's not a ton of cards, which is great because you can really kind of focus on what's in them. And they're just marvelous images. I don't know. Yeah, there it goes. Okay.
There you go. Oh, there you go.
Yep. And they're common things. And then she also has a sheet that comes with it that tells you how to interpret it. And I love this one.
Yes.
And so they're really sort of common images, but they're easy to work with. And even if you just pull them as clarifiers, they're great fun. And you call the deck keys? Is that what you call it?
Yes. Well, it's clarity, like a cup of tea.
Okay.
So, we have all the clairs. We have the, clairaudience, clairsentience, all of those, correct?
Right.
Well, this is clarity, when you're trying to pull them all together and you get all these downloads all at one time, which we know how that goes some days, right? And sorting them out, then that's when you need a cup of tea. So these started out, let me back up just a little bit. I was retiring from 25 years of being a teacher at a small private preschool, and knew I was going to move back to Michigan. Though I had been divorced for more than 10 years, I never wanted to be his wife again, but I couldn't be his spouse. And he became very ill with cancer and crossed up. I was with him through all of that at the end. So doing this, I already knew that I was going to do something as part of my giveaway for all the benefits that my 30 years in Virginia had given me. But I was closing the door on a life where I had to go back to that 3D.
Right. Well, that's part of the human journey, yes.
Exactly. And though most people were willing to accept me as the Miss Frizzle with purple hair CBI, and all the wonderful things that occurred, it's just there were things that I couldn't always be myself with. So when I was coming here, I knew I was able to close that. I can now pick and choose when I have to deal with that vibration. Right? So that's how this started out. And it was like, okay, what can I do that can be gifts? And through all of the things of 2020 and the beginning of 21, I started watching YouTube because I had never watched YouTube. And so it was like, what can I do to give something to all of these people who have kept me sane through this? And also be able to give to the soothsayers that are just in my family, my nieces and cousins.
Right.
So that's how this design started. And I only knew for a fact that I wanted the 4 seasons to begin the deck. Then I knew I would stop at 28. So the images came randomly, everything came randomly. When I put them together in the sequence that they should be in, I just, it's jaw-dropping to see the numbers and how it associates with the image that's on the card. Because Spirit did that.
Right. That's when you're channeling things. And people are like, oh, well, I could never think of all those bits and pieces. I'm going to show one more example of what some friends of mine have come up with. And this was actually designed by the lady who did the first set of eggs, the one who almost died because of the acrylics. Well, she found something safer to work with. She works with tea lights, and that's the chariot. In case you're wondering, I'm going to show you another example. And each of them comes with a card. which I'm not sure I can get close enough to the camera to have it make sense. Yes,
There you go.
it says, use this candle to set your intention to obtain balance and freedom and movement. And she's got every one of the major arcanas. And the woman who helped her come up with the intentions and the candle designs is also an old friend of mine who's a reader. And in the footnotes on this program, you can find out where you can go buy these and get them at a discount. She's doing a 15% discount for this show. But I just wanted to show this to people to see. I don't know that the Emperor's going to... Yeah, he shows up really well.
Yeah.
That's the Emperor, and the intention they send with it is use this candle to set your intention to ask for protection, control, intellect, and authority, and to attain it with clean sight. They got a little bitty wick in the middle, and you lay them down flat, and they're just a tea candle, and you can set up your intentions and leave it on your altar to burn, or on your desk, or your moon ceremony, or whatever you want to do. And the thing is that when I was thinking about people I've seen make incredible growth, a year ago, we were launching the eggs and doing all that, but Shelley had never worked with any of these kind of forms very much. And now she's learned the vocabulary, learned how to work with it. She and my friend Sherilyn are making these wonderful candles. And I put how to get their company's called Art of the Art, and I put the link on how to reach them and how to get a hold of them. And they come in a cutie pie little a little black bag, and so they make lovely gifts. And I just think that they're great fun, and it's just another friend I've seen go through a change where she actually came out and created things and moved beyond the step 5, old structures break down and dissolve, so you begin to find a new way. And that's kind of where they are too. We did get a couple questions, Diana, from people who, when I put it up on the community page. And one person asked about what are the physical symptoms people suffer from or go through when they're going through ascension or when they're going through changes. Now, I got ringing in my ears, and it was considered an artifact after I had surgery. I had general anesthesia. That's one of the complications that can come from general anesthesia, especially as you get older. So when they finally tracked it down and said, yeah, you just have ringing in your ears, it's very, very light. I am so lucky, but it's there. But when the angels really want to talk to me in the middle of the night, it's like a roaring river going through my head. So I'm aware that it's connected to other energies other than that. I've had arrhythmias from being whipsawed when I was channeling in the garden and some other things, and that was kind of rough, and I had to just tell him, hey, back off. You're dealing with a woman who's 72 years old here. Think about it. And you have a right to tell them to back off. But a lot of the physical changes, some people feel numbness, some people feel... one of my clients that I work with frequently, she said, she called me up and she said, I'm freaked out. And I said, why? And she said, I was walking down this path, and all of a sudden I realized my feet were a foot off the ground, but I was walking. And she said, am I getting delusional? And I said, no, you were just, your energy was spacing itself out. I know for me, when I was younger, in order to preserve what skills I had, I kind of lived with a bubble out behind my head, and that's where my skills were, and they just kind of watched my body and helped it get through grade school and stuff. But all the other, that more conscious part of me had to separate from the 3D part of me. And so those are kind of my personal experiences, but some people do really do not go through periods of feeling not well, and that's one of the reasons why what's going to be the carry forward from this show is how do you use your frequencies? How do you gauge your frequencies? What do you look at to know where your frequencies are? Because there's a wonderful book, and if you do not have this book, you must go find this book. I mean, you don't have to, but your life will be better if you do. It's called Angels Speak. And it's how to talk with your angels. And it's not a fat book. You can read it in half an afternoon. And when I first found that book, it wasn't even in print anymore. I had to go through used bookstores to find copies to get to friends. And I got it to a lot of my friends. But one of my favorite quotes is in there is, to raise your level of consciousness, use constructive words, optimistic thoughts that will bring what you want to see into your life. And they preach the positivity of all that. And so that tells you, that's one of the reasons why I have a lot of trouble following readers that go too much into the negative, because those are not words that make us better. And if we don't do anything else, I would love to be able to make things better for people. And I see we're getting a lot of new people in. Our numbers are growing. Apparently they finally realized, oh my God, it's 1 o'clock Central Standard Time. What we're talking about is the first part of a book called Frequency, which I ran into when I was starting to work with Danny too. And the woman who wrote it, her name is Penney Pierce, and I heard about her from Pam Gregory. And she wrote this book in 2009, and she does probably the best definition of sort of the stages we're going through to go into the ascension. And none of us live this on a straight road. You go, you start, then you fall back, then you retrench, then you have to rethink and redo. But in each chapter in this book, when she starts talking about how to deal with your frequencies and stuff, she has a little quiz at the end and said, sort of, where are you? I think it's very, very useful. I'm going to use it with some clients I work with because I think it's very, very helpful to help them understand where they are. And I'm talking about how one of the things I see happening, and you saw Andrea with Lilac Lantern, she played with those cards for a year. And finally she went ahead and made them. And now she's just spewing out wonderful stuff. You know, all the stuff that's coming to light. All that's part of us growing within our community and growing our skills and putting our skill out there. Because trust me, I mean, 5 years ago, there's no way I would have done a product that had to do with readings. I wouldn't have even designed a deck.
Well, you know, with the vibrations, the more you use your garden, your stones, not only are you picking up their vibrations, they are picking up your vibrations. You imprinting them. You're not taming the wild in them. You are sharing your human imprint with them. Paper, you know, paper is cellulose. It's very susceptible to vibration. It used to be a tree. What did a tree do? Spreads its roots in the ground, responds to dirt, it responds to water, it responds to sunshine, it responds to the wind when the leaves are rustling all over the place, or letting loose because it's the end of the season. Absolutely. And another quote from Rumi that goes along with that negativity that we are finding a little bit too much and a little too hard to deal with is, Rumi says, raise your words, not your voice. It is rain that grows the flowers, not thunder. And absolutely, absolutely so. Read the situation for sure.
Yeah, well, on the day we're doing this, we're taping this on January 6th. It's the
last day of Christmas. Let's just
I know, it's the Epiphany. It's the Epiphany. But it is also, for our country, unfortunately, from a year ago, it's a bad anniversary. And you saw that, you know, what gets raised in thunder does not help the situation.
Exactly, which was, you know, I'm old Polish stock, so I celebrate all 12 days of Christmas, and I was appalled with what happened on January 6th last year, because of course my outlook was, something new will now begin.
Yeah.
It's January 6th. Oh, goodness. It was like Herod at the door.
Right. We need to, and in these times when we're having to look at those kinds of issues and work around them, it's like, meet them with optimistic thoughts and optimistic words. Don't get tied into the negative things and people trying to pull you back. and say it's going to be this way or that way.
Right.
And trust your own instincts about it.
Right. It, you know, when, whose quote was it? Chopra? Who
Yeah.
says, if you try to get rid of fear and anger without knowing their meaning, they will grow stronger and return. How true is that, right? The easiest way to out of something is to go through it, to get into it. We learned that with childbirth. Breathe into your labor pains. It makes it so much easier. And that's one of the lessons in riding a motorcycle, in driving a motorcycle. You get in trouble in a rut on the road, you got to ride through it. That's the only way out of it. And that fear of the first time becomes embracement. And that embracement now becomes part of a shield, so that the fear is lessened because the aura from you is holding it at bay, rather than calling it in, because now you're vibrating with fear and you're shaking with fear. Absolutely.
And one of the things that I was telling Diana, I was showing some friends, I had just a Zoom call with some friends, not an official businessy call. And I was showing them how I was learning how to read frequencies with this, and that's the thing that the coming attractions with Danny and I had gotten my vibrations up there, up about 900 to 1,000, which is really good. And I was like, I had a good morning meditation. I had a stone that I keep by me, and the second I hit that stone, it just grounds my energy back in and helps things. Well, then I got a scam likely call, and these people weren't letting go. Man, they just kept calling. So I picked it up and I answered it, and I said, what do you want? And this guy starts, I said, no, just take me off your list. So he starts screaming at me in Tagalog, which is, he's in the Philippines, right? So he's on the other side of the world screaming at me. And it just pissed me off. So I told him to F off. And I hung the phone up. And then my friend said, oh, measure your frequency now. I'd lost 400 points in like 2 minutes. So you begin to become aware. And I don't think I would have been aware if I hadn't been doing this process, if I hadn't been thinking of this. Now, maybe y'all have already gone past all this, but for me, it's kind of a revelation to have a way to say to people, does this make you feel better? Does this work for you? Does this calm you down?
Yep, absolutely. I know. I get a little irritated with one of my dogs. She's the alpha, and so now she's like trying to freeze the little 10-pound beast to death. She takes his blanket, she takes his toy, she growls at him when he jumps on the bed at night to go to bed, and it gets me irritated. And then I went, now wait a minute, she's the dog. You can take control of this. And so yesterday she was very well behaved because I praised her every moment. Every time she did something right. Just like a child.
Well, yeah. That's what we ought to do for each other. We should praise each other for the things we do well. And you go back to that study the Japanese scientist did where he had 2 beakers of water and they were exactly the same, sealed exactly the same way. But one of the beakers that they screamed at and yelled at and said bad words to and things. And the other one, they said, what glorious water you are. Well, the one that they were screaming at got scummy. And the one that was clear stayed clear. It didn't scum up the same way. So the vibrations we give out are all important. And the only way we can, I'm a person who has to kind of have a way of measuring the vibrations because medically, I'm what they call a non-perceiver. I don't feel pain. And I've walked around on broken bones, guys. I don't feel pain. And I was in hard labor and showed up and I said, well, I kept worrying because these pushes got to be about 5 minutes apart, and I knew something about 5 minutes apart. And the woman said, oh, honey, if you were in labor, you'd know. She said, next time you get a push, tell me. And she put her hand on my stomach, and I don't know how they did it, but 4 burly nurses showed up and flipped my little body on a gurney, and I was not off that gurney till I gave birth to my first son. And they were like, don't you feel anything? And I said, sorry. And I knew that was true before.
Well, and the first rule of being a teacher in early childhood development is catch them being good. Because you know catch them doing naughty things, but catch them being good and reinforce that behavior. It's the way to deal with, well, I had a lot of kids come through that needed child find, and that was part of the job that I was doing, catch these issues at an early time so that they can get the help they need.
Right.
And the hardest thing is convincing the parents that Johnny may need some help. And then you have to work extra hard when you know that you're getting butted by the parent. Child needs you because at home he's getting yelled at more than he is getting praised for the things that he's doing. So it can snowball into a more difficult position. Luckily, I've also had many wonderful parents who did listen. You know, I was there for 25 years, so.
Yeah, I know. I fought that in my own household. My first husband didn't want to believe my son couldn't read. And I'd get him in the classes to get help with his reading, and they would take him out. And he had a weird kind of dyslexic thing. But anyway, finally his dad moved to Guam when he was 16, and Sean said, I really want to go. Well, he was doing absolutely nothing in the schools here. They were not going to help him anymore. They were going to pass him out, and he was going to be one of those functionally illiterate people. And so I said, go to Guam with your dad if you want to. And he really did want to, because I had just had Patrick, and so now I had another son. I mean, it was a whole family dynamic crap. But he went to Guam, and it was the makings of him. He got to Guam, and in Guam they have people come from all over the world and into their educational system. So I tested him, and they told his dad, you know, your son's really, really smart, but he can't read. And he goes, oh, did my bitch wife call you and tell you that? It's a big lie. And they said, no, but if she knows something about it, we'd like to. So what they had to do is go to my son and say, how can we reach your mom? And I sent them the whole big file, and it was about this thick by that time because of all the specialists that I'd had work with them. And they had solutions. And he went from being functionally illiterate at 16 to going to college and writing papers that went to the UN. Because they caught him, he had not been taught to read phonetically. He was taught that stupid whole word method. And he had a problem where he would lose letters doing it that way. So when they put him in English as a second language, where they teach all the kids to read phonetically, it's like the whole world opened up. He said within 6 months, he was like, oh, that's how you read.
Yeah, I have that problem too. I have dyslexia.
Okay.
I know. It can be so difficult. It's just the whole. There's nothing there. It's like, so I tell you, I have to read in my brain. I'm saying all the words, including comma, period.
Yeah. Okay. I have to say goodbye to Virginia. Thank you for joining us. She liked the discussion, but she has to go. I mean, people do have lives other than sitting around watching us chit chat. I think if you, I would think if you would like to, I'm trying to give you ideas of where to go and where to look about how to get past things. And one of the things I ran into today was, you talked about it, walking through your fear. And Daily Ohm has a daily little newsletter they throw out, and they throw out some really good thoughts on it. And it talks about how fear can either stop us in our tracks or we can move on past it. But there's not kind of, and that once you get past the fear, you look back and you go, why was I so terrified of that? Why didn't I understand what I could do? Each step, it talks about each step that you take through fear will strengthen you, help you confront future fears with poise, courage, and confidence. And it also eliminates fear, because the more you know that boogeyman in the corner didn't get you, the better you are. Because somebody said to me, well, how can you just read cards and say that to people? And I said, because they asked me to read their cards, and that's what the cards say, and so that's what I say to people. But there was a time when I'd look at something and it'd be a really difficult reading, and I'd go, God, how am I going to tell the person this? But it wasn't I don't question it anymore. If I open myself up, the words are there, and it's a matter of practice.
Another rule of the road on two wheels, what are two wheels about? Sense of balance.
Oh yeah.
So if you, the first thing they tell you is keep your eyes on where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because where you look is where you're gonna go. You look at the ground, you're falling over. And that's exactly how you stay balanced. Where is it you wanna be? Your feet will maneuver through the path.
Mm-hmm.
You will find stones and step lightly. You will find, a hole and be careful so you don't twist your ankle. So that's another way through it to get out of it is look at where you want to be. That also is a great tool for getting beyond the fear.
Well, I've been looking to see, and I haven't seen anybody asking us many questions about this. They're talking to each other about some other things. Talking about somebody using chemo and giving them advice about that. And that's a scary situation because you're not in control of your body, and other people are putting things in and around you. But you just have to focus on you're getting better.
Envision what it will be like when
Right.
it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Envision, I'm a breast cancer survivor. There are things, because I also have systemic lupus, and I was fortunate enough to be in stage 1, though it was level 4 cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So when it was caught, and because I had systemic lupus, it was certain that I could do this without any radiation and without any chemo, and it was mastectomy.
Mm-hmm.
So full, complete mastectomy right off the bat. They had gotten all cancer with the biopsy, and so from that, I was very lucky, and that was in 1996.
Good for you. You're out of the woods, basically.
Basically, thank you very much. Thank you.
Every day, I mean, I have had scares. Mine just keep being weird, benign crap that grows in my body. Before we leave, there's a couple things that I'd like to kind of reframe for the people who showed up late.
Sure.
I'm talking about Penney Pierce's book, and she has 9 steps, and I'm going to review them now. Sorry for the people who came early, but the step 1 is your spirit merges with body, emotions, and mind, and that's when we're kind of in 3D and we're walking around like that. Step 2 is frequencies in your life increase, and you begin to feel those vibrations, those changes. 3 is personal and collective unconscious combine and empty. And that's when you start to realize you're having intuitions and you're understanding things that rational science says you can't know. The 4th step for a lot of people is they retrench, refortify, resist, and resuppress because they don't want to go there. They don't want to do that. But then step 5 is, and this is like sort of relate to COVID, all the old structures break down, and that happened across the world, and dissolve, and they're just not able to go back to them. So at that point, if you're moving forward, you stop, you let go, you relax, and become your truest self. And I think that's happened to a lot of us in isolation, much to our amazement that would happen. And then 7, you reemerge into the world like a phoenix, and you've what you were, you have built from, and you're coming out as something even better. And then 8 is when you've gone through all that, relationships, family, and group experiences are revolutionized. And so people start to pick their own tribe, find their own family. Sometimes they go stronger with their family. Sometimes, goes all different sorts of ways, but we're all growing. Hi, Sharon Sipe. She showed up finally. And then
Hi,
9, enlightenment is grounded in every bit of matter. And that's when we're going into ascension and we begin to understand how we're connected to everything. And what I'm going to be doing is a series of shows on how to monitor your own frequencies, how to understand frequencies, because where I'm sitting right now, I have a computer beside me and I have big screens and I have a lot of stuff and sending energy to me. If I go in my kitchen, some of that underlying frantic energy goes away. And it's a matter of making yourself sensitive so that you know what's really affecting you. And what I would like for people to learn is that we're all part of this process. It's not a race. There's not everybody has to make it around the track at the same time. Everybody needs to take the steps they need to take to move forward. And any suggestions you guys might have about working with frequencies that you'd like me to be looking at. Because when I find a rabbit hole, as Danny says, when you find a rabbit hole, you really go down it. And so I'm really down in this rabbit hole. I really want to teach people how to use a pendulum to monitor their own frequencies, because I think we're all changing fast enough now. It's a very useful tool. And
Do we have to do a reading? Do we have time to do a general reading?
Yes, but there's one more thing I want to say to people.
Oh,
Part of this
okay.
process is when you stop, let go, and relax and become your truest selves, you do things like you create the wonderful oracle deck that Diane has created. And this is what one of the cards looks like, if I can get it into the light right. And that she sends it with a sheet that tells you, yeah, that's your owl. I love that owl. She sends it with a sheet
Owls
to
are my
teach you
favorite.
how to read it. Of course, I still am selling my garden at my website, and that information's below. And I also introduced this group to these wonderful tea lights from Art of the Art, which are based on the major arcana. So if you got a friend who's a real tarot freak and they have a particular cards they like, these tea candles are wonderful. And I showed them earlier. I can't get it out of the bag right now. But they come with an intention card. They're all 22 of the major arcana. You can pick any one of them. And that information is below on how to find them. Because I want to reward and encourage people to become part of the creative processes that bring everything forward to us. So why don't you do a quick reading, and I'll pull a color card, and then we'll be done.
I'll pull 5 cards for
Okay.
body, mind, spirit, grounding, and clarity.
That's right. That sounds awfully familiar.
We'll see how this fits with your reading tonight, Luke Jeffrey.
Mm-hmm.
Love it, love it, love it. Oh my, how perfect. First card up is Sanctuary.
Oh,
Am I in the screen right? Can you
yes,
see that?
yes, I can see it fine. Mm-hmm. I can see it.
Okay, Sanctuary. Now, I have to tell this little story because this man is real. He builds these incredible cairns in the woods where I walk. There is such a village, and when he's not there doing that and practicing Tai Chi, he's working at the GM plant. So he's just a regular old fellow that everybody calls him. But sanctuary. So our body is our sanctuary. Take care of it. Honor. Do for it what it needs. It will signal when there is a real threat to your health. You don't know, and so therefore honor your body for sanctuary. Stand in your own truth. Be the harbinger of truth. And don't be afraid to ask for help and support, because others are standing in their truth, and together as a tribe, we can ward off and avenge the evil rage that's still out there. And then we have the heritage card. Now, dressed in old-time Polish costumes. Yes, put them on to go and dance the polka and have a big festivals. But we don't wear them anymore. So with the heritage card, we are walking up the hill, we are moving forward, we are taking with us what we need. Doesn't mean abandon everything you've ever learned from your grandparents. It's more important. In fact, one of my guides screamed at me in the woods the other day, you are someone who must preserve the past because you are of the future. And that's what we have to do. We have to make sure that the lessons of the past are taught to the generations ahead of us, the 7 generations that we need to protect, as Native Americans believe. And then owl has wisdom, but he's often hidden in plain sight. Their camouflage in their feathers is so perfect, it just blends them right into a tree trunk, even when there aren't any leaves on the trees. So use your inner wisdom. It's hidden right there in your own soul, in your own heart. And be the change you want to see. The beautiful autumn fairies have come to turn everything, that beautiful ripened color. The apples are red, the pumpkins are orange, the pears are delicious, and the oranges are almost ready. So I think that's a very good reading for our group here.
What I pulled out of the color deck, which is a deck I absolutely adore. If you haven't seen it, The Secret Language of Color, the definitions are great, and every time I've used it, it's turned out perfect. Today we got Aqua, and it's number 33, which is master number. Aqua creates a state of serenity, tranquility, and peace, soothing your mind, calming your nerves. It's a great color to work with for meditation and when you would like to experience inner stillness. It's also the color of patience, faith, acceptance, and coolness. Aqua dissolves your fears to increase your confidence on behalf of yourself. And it says, spend some time relaxing, focusing on your inner stillness. And that's where you're going to find your growth, guys, is that quiet stuff. Aqua light moving through your nervous system, calming, purifying, creating a sense of peace. Say this, Divine Spirit, infuse me with healing aqua light. Calm my nerves, allow me to experience a sense of peace and tranquility. And I think that's just a wonderful way to end. Oh, thank you. And I do want to say to people, thank you for all your support. I put in my thing too how you can either donate through Venmo, PayPal, or you can do it on this thing. I really appreciate that. And please like and subscribe, because YouTube went through and scrubbed my subscribers, and then I got sick. And for those of you who don't know, I got COVID on the 18th of December. Today I went to get my test to see if I'm negative. They can't get a negative test on me. I have found out the horrifying fact that it can take up to 12 weeks to get a negative test. It's not like what they say. But I'm not going to take 12 weeks. I actually feel so much better today. But in the 2 weeks, or the 2.5 weeks I haven't been on, except with Jeffrey every day, which we taped before I got sick. She went away again, so she got another phone call. Okay. I actually got 40 new members. So, I mean, I have no idea what they must be coming from the dailies or something, but I really appreciate the support. The more support we have, the more we can do. I am not going to cater to freaking people out or scaring them or telling them they have to come back to my channel every day for the perils of Pauline. I want you to come to my channel because you want to grow. That's my thing, is growing and moving forward. And if you have any ideas for other shows or other ideas you'd like us to look at, please let me know. And you can do that through my community page. My email is in there. You can go to my website. You can see my grids. You can see my gardens. And hopefully, they tell me that tonight I should see the first really completely finished egg. And if they've got it done, then we can start really making them. These guys said when they started out working with me in June, thinking, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake. This poor guy's been through it. And he said, I've learned more about acrylic than I ever wanted to know. But if they're as clear as he says, and they've managed to make the medallions, then we will be ready to go. Yeah, Diane has a grid.
I love my grid. Do we have time for me to quickly explain how I
You can
activate?
explain it. Mm-hmm.
I also have Nancy's garden. And so what I had done was I laid the scarf down, and because I'm a rock nut and a stick nut and a feather nut and anything I find in the woods, I already have several stones exactly like what is on here. The only one I didn't have that I could use was a mother of pearl. Mm-hmm. So I took the scarf and laid it down with north facing true north. On top of that scarf, I laid out stones that were exactly a match to this.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them had to go out farther because they were larger. So in the center, I had a pie stone of the same stone that this is. Then I laid it down and charged it.
Mm-hmm.
So because I can't, this grid is friendship. And I can't carry this grid with me everywhere I go, but I can take the stones.
Mm-hmm.
So I can put the stones into a nice bag, put the bag in my pocket, and go for wherever I have to go. And that way I am carrying the grid with me throughout the day, wherever my travels may be.
Mm-hmm.
It has really worked. And it's really warm right now. It is, oh my gosh. I can, especially the carnelians, they're like hot.
Yeah, they're hot. They carry a lot of energy.
So that's awesome. And I love her. Another reason why I can't take her around with me is because I have this baby. And this baby is her best friend.
Yeah, that's
So-
that's not a pocket stone, guys. That's not a palm stone. That's a big.
No, she's not a pocket stone by any means. And the other side, I know it's hard to see the images here, but the other side, it looks like the Klimt picture of the kiss.
Mm-hmm.
And then on this side, if anyone else out there knows, this reminds me of the legend of Nellie Two Bowls. She was one of the first women pipe carriers in the Lakota Nation. And when I first saw this stone, I went goo goo gaga. So I had done an oil painting or acrylic painting for someone, and they gave me that as a gift for the painting.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It's up.
okay, kiddos, we really got to go. We've been on here more than an hour, and I don't like to drag things on. I mean, I love the company, but actually, I'm getting tired. I do have a little bit of COVID leftover of tiredness. I run into a wall of tired, and I want y'all to know, don't think you can just run in somewhere, because I was at a party that I was in an isolated room away from everybody else. The only people I had face to face with was people I read. And at that party, someone came in who didn't know she'd been exposed to COVID. And by Sunday, this was Saturday night, Sunday, if someone had reported to her, you've been exposed to COVID, she tested positive. So she let the hostess know. By Tuesday, I had it. So that was Saturday night to Tuesday. And there were 60 plus people at this party. Over 40 of them got some form of active COVID. So this Omicron is nothing to screw around with. It's not as bad. It didn't get into my lungs, but it's going to take a while. And hugs to everyone who's shown up. And thank you for all your likes, subscribes, and shares. And, and if you want to see more like this, let me know. We're going to continue. I'm at least going to do a series of 4 things on studying frequencies. Anyway, thank you all for being here. And